Welcome, everybody, to this very special relaunch of the Soul of Synth-Pop Zoom Spotlight series. And we're going to do things a little bit differently this time around. And one of those big changes is I will have a co-host that will be joining me. And that co-host is the awesome Mae, or Mae de Agua, for those of you that know her on social media. She is awesome. She just has one of the most amazing passions for independent music in general, not just independent synth pop, but you will not find a better advocate if you are an indie artist than this wonderful lady who we are going to introduce right now. So Mae, let's tell folks a little bit about you for those who don't know who you are before we introduce the man of the hour. So take it away, Mae.
Okay, well, on the spot. I'm from South Texas, born and raised, and I was raised with music in the house, always, mostly a lot of bossa nova and jazz, and the standards, the Beatles, and um, I'm in a military town, so married in the military and left San Antonio and got exposed to some more really great types of music in the different places I've lived. And came back recently when my husband retired, and we came back home. And since then, we've just really been enjoying um, everything that this area has to offer. Um, I really, really have a passion for being like the only person at somebody's gig that's not their family. But it's really important to me as a visual artist myself. I really I see what goes into the work, the music. It's art, and I love supporting that. And whenever I can, and I've made a lot of really great friends through starting. Really, it was the pandemic. Just was We had just come back, and we're just starting to get out again. And then this happened, and of all places, I was forced to get on Twitter, and that's how I reconnected with Claude Strillo of Anything Box. And then through Claude, I connected with Jimm. And that was the start of something really awesome. And I really enjoyed making friends with people from around the world who have this passion for their music and keep doing it, because it's not an easy thing to produce, a bunch of CDs that don't really sell, and you end up giving them away towards the end of the pile. And I have that appreciation for everything that goes into it, and not having the need to be a big name or a big known or to have that consume your life. The people that I know, they have day jobs, they have families, and they have other passions, and just music is just one of them, and I love supporting that.
Awesome. And you certainly do a phenomenal job of supporting those indie artists that are out there. And I know so many people are just they just think the world of you, and rightly so. You're when it came down to me trying to think of somebody who could be my co-host for this special spotlight series that we're relaunching. Um, Top of my list was you, and I'm not ashamed to say that, just because you do have such a genuine, sincere appreciation and love for the music and the people that make it, and that's something the importance of which cannot be overstated. Just because you kind of got to have that when you're doing what it is that I do with the Soul of Synth Pop. And I know you've written some outstanding reviews for many artists, and it definitely shows in your writing style. And of course, you're there all the time whenever I happen to do a live chat for the Soul of Synth Pop, and it's truly an honor and a joy to have you join me as we relaunch this spotlight series. So thank you so much for joining us and for being part of the team.
Well, thank you. I feel incredibly honored that you've asked me to be a part of this. It's pretty awesome. It's neat.
Right on. So moving right along, let's introduce our guest of honor today, the gentleman who we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about. And chances are, if you have been involved in the indie synth pop, synth wave, or any of the indie synth music scene for easily the last 5 or 6 years, then chances are you know who this guy is. This is a very special artist. He is one of my favorite artists. He's also one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. He's just an amazing human being all around. He hails from Southern California, and he goes by the moniker of Darwinmcd. So, Darren, we'll go ahead and we'll say hello to you now and welcome you to this
Hello.
special relaunch of the Sol of Synth-Pop Spotlight Series. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And so, Darren, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us how Darwinmcd got started, and we'll just kind of go from there.
All right. Wow. Okay. So Darwinmcd, where did that come from? That was it was actually my username for my first AOL online like email account. And I just kind of came up with it because I didn't want to be anybody to know who I was, kind of trying to be anonymous, but kind of link my real name in there a little bit. And then years later, and I'd use that name for other accounts, and I'd set up my SoundCloud account with Darwinmcd. And when I started making music again in like, I don't know, it was like 2017, and uploading stuff to SoundCloud, it's like, oh, is your artist name Darwinmcd? I was like, sure, why not? So it just kind of stuck, and that's how I got that name. But yeah, I've been, doing music since, gosh, a very young age. I got my first synthesizer when I was 16. It's actually sitting right next to me here, still have it, in Sonic ESQ1. And it really had a drive to try to recreate what all of these awesome people like Howard Jones and Thomas Dolby and Vince Clarke, and I could go on and on about all my influences, but kind of do what they did. And I was particularly attracted to the ability to make music myself. Like I didn't need anybody else. I didn't have to go find a drummer or a guitarist. I could just have the synthesizer and 8-track or whatever sequencer and kind of just put stuff together myself and control it and do it myself. So I was really into that and just started writing music. Around that time, it was all crap, well, let's be honest. All the stuff I wrote back then was not good. But it enabled me to kind of get that fire that flame that I had for a long time before that to create music. And I did that probably through my early 20s, mid 20s, something like that. And just life happened, marriage, kid, job, career, all that, and music kind of took a backstage, at least creating it. Always loved music, listened to it, never left my life, but just the creation of it. And then in about 2017-ish, I just discovered some software that made it really easy to just kind of play around with and create, electronic music. And I was fooling around with that and started putting some songs together, and it like, oh, this is actually sounds pretty good. And, I just had, I don't know, like 20 some odd years of creative buildup inside of me that I just had to get out. So I wrote a bunch of songs and I put them out there, started connecting with, other people in the community that we're all part of, now this indie synth community, and made some really good friends, as you said, and Mae as well. Just met so many wonderful, loving, supportive people, but other collaborators as well, and just started putting my music out into the world. And if 5 people, 1 person listens to it, that's all I cared about. I just wanted to get it out there, and hopefully people other than me enjoyed it, and it turns out some people do. So not a lot, but enough for me, and so I just keep doing it. And it's just one of my passions in life is to create and share it with everybody. So I don't know, that that's kind of a long way to tell it to get to the end, but
Well, I don't feel so bad because usually it's me who's just talks and talks.
long-winded.
So that's a nice refreshing break, I'm sure, for our viewers. But so yeah, you basically got started with the Darwinmcd music project going back to about 2017, right?
Yeah.
And all your first couple of releases were instrumentals, which were just phenomenal instrumentals. In particular, you released one called Tumbleweed, which to me sounds like it easily could have been a Vince Clarke, a long lost Vince Clarke track. Just so much energy, and it has that bouncy pop feel that I absolutely love about Vince Clarke. And you've definitely channeled not just Vince Clarke, but a lot of your other influence as well. But the cool thing about it is that you also managed to put your own identity into every song that you compose or that you remix. And let's talk about that. Remixes. You've also become quite the in-demand remix guy.
Oh, maybe at one time, yeah, it slowed down a little bit, but
well,
there was.
your remixes are truly some of the best that are out there, honestly.
Thank you very much. That's quite a
Absolutely.
compliment. Thank you. I like doing it. It's fun because it feels like I get to collaborate with all of these other artists that, like create something new, even though we're not really doing it at the same time. It's just kind of me taking, something they created and doing my own thing with it. But it's a fun exercise, as a musician to be able to not only write your own music, but then be able to kind of put your twist on somebody else's song. And it could be something that's not even in your style. Like I've done a few where it's nothing I would have ever like really thought about remixing, and they came to me and I was like, yeah, I could take a crack at that, and did my
Soul.
no. But it definitely gives you another creative output, right? Or a way to, expand your touch on other areas of music. And yeah, it's I've been really lucky to have people ask me to do that, and it's always an honor to get asked, and to, especially when they're happy with it. My biggest fear is I turn something over and they're like, no, it's not really good, we'll put that one on, maybe on the next, the B side or something like that. So it's definitely it helps when they're happy with it. So, but yeah, it's been really fun. I do like remixing, and I love having people remix my songs and just go to town with it. I love hearing what other people, their interpretations, or what they would do with something that I've written or collaborated with, other artists. So that's always a pleasure as well. Yeah.
Right on. Mae, let me ask you, what is let's have you talk a little bit about Darren's remixes. Just thinking back, what are some of the remixes that Darren has done, or that you've heard that he's had a hand in, either as the original artist or as a remix artist remixing somebody else's song?
I want to say that the first one that really caught my attention was probably the Matthias and Mars When the Sky Falls Down remix.
Yes.
I had heard that one on your show, and was just, there's just like, wow, I like this, and there's this touch. And then listening to a remix first, then you have to go back and find the original song, listen to that, and then say, okay, here's the differences, here's the touch that this person put on that. And those struck me right away. I mean, just really, I would go and I would see another one, and I listen to that one too. Because I remember when I had tweeted something on Twitter about, oh my gosh, I'm fangirling pretty hard right here. This Darwinmcd remixes are just amazing. And there's this certain touch, there's a certain characteristic. And so that one especially. Did you do one of Matthias and Mark Bebb?
Yes.
Code. Did you do one for Code?
No, it was
Hold Me, wasn't it?
Hold Me.
Yeah,
where you're sitting on the park bench.
Yeah,
That's good. Okay, yeah, the cover
yes,
has that. So yeah, that was the other one that just really struck me. And so yeah, it was just, I was hooked. I mean, I like, we've talked about this. I love that galloping arpeggio. It is, and so, and then there's another sound that when I hear a remix, it's funny. There was one I was listening to for the first time, and I'm like, okay, this is Darwinmcd, and it probably might have been Blacklight's
Unknown Love.
Unknown Love, yeah. And hearing it, I'm like, okay, well, this sounds like Blacklight. This sounds like Blacklight. And then all of a sudden, there was just this sound. I said, oh, there it is. There's Darwinmcd. And I get to the point where with a couple of remixers, when I recognize their signature sound, I just start giggling. I mean, we'll be in the car and listening to a new song, and my husband's sitting next to me, and all of a sudden I just start giggling, and he's like, "Yep, she found it." It just absolutely tickles me to see that, because just, visual art. It always reminds me of, there was a parlor game, Victorian thing called Exquisite Corpse, if I'm saying it right. And people would bring different pieces, they would make it a body, and people would bring different pieces, their renditions. So the head, the arms, the legs, and you put it all together and you get one really odd looking thing. And this is what those people did for fun. That's because they didn't have the internet. And that's what kind of reminds me of when artists remix each other, is bringing that and creating a whole new body.
And I would completely agree. And Darren, you do a fantastic job doing just that, bringing your own special signature sound kind of thing to every remix that you do. And I have to say, the remixes that Mae called out are among my absolute favorite of yours, especially the Matthias and Mars. But another one of my absolute favorite remixes of yours is the one you did for Hollowlove and their Particle and Wave. I just love that because, of course, everybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge Kraftwerk fan. And that song, Keith had already kind of turned it into a little bit of a Kraftwerkish type of a vibe, like Kraftwerk meets Prince kind of thing.
Yeah.
And your remix incorporated all kinds of the great elements that was in the original track, but also you added some extra rhythmic components to the mix that just, to this day, it's one of the best remixes that I've ever heard. And of course, the remixes that you did for Eminent Sol with Sway, which of course is a song that has very special meaning to me. You made it sound like a song that would have come out of a John Hughes movie. I love, especially your extended mix of Sway. Just to this day, I love listening to it. And the other one, Speed of Light, the Speed of Light remix that you did is just absolutely stellar, and really love the job that you did with that. So yeah, man, you are one of the best remix artists out there, I think, in my humble and highly biased opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody agrees with you, but okay. I appreciate it. That's very kind of you to say. But no, it's very fun. I had a lot of fun doing the remixes for you, Jimm, especially Sway. I just when I listen to a song that I've been asked to remix, so my glasses keep fogging up. I just kind of, like, okay, what could I do to this song, or what, to change it up or whatever, and put my stamp on it. And and it sometimes inspires things that I've heard in other songs, like maybe a Depeche Mode song, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just try, like, oh, that would sound really cool in there, and I just kind of run with it, and then it just kind of takes on a life of its own. But yeah, no, that song was so beautiful to begin with, Sway, that it was so easy to just kind of run with it. So hats off to you for writing such a beautiful song to start with. It starts with the source material, of course. But yeah, I was super glad that you liked what I did with it. And, yeah, it's
Cannot thank you enough. Thank you.
Well,
so
the honor was all mine.
let's also talk about another aspect, Mae, of Darren's amazing body of work that he has done. This year, you are celebrating I believe, the 5th anniversary of a track that you collaborated on with Eric C. Powell, good old ECP himself down there in Austin, Texas. And of course, that song is Click. And I say it almost every time I play it on my show, but Click is one of those songs that is just, it's honestly one of the greatest synth pop songs that has been released. And I mean, I'm putting it up there with the legacy artists, the big names.
Oh.
It truly is that good. You and Eric just absolutely knocked that one out of the park. And I'm just amazed at how, if I could write the perfect synth pop song, I would hope that it would sound something like that. And then there's another song that you collaborated on with one of the many tracks that you have done with, of course, Mark Bebb, who, speaking of another person who is one of my absolute favorite human beings, just think the world of Mark. And his voice is just, he's got one of the most amazing voices out there within the indie synth community. But the song that you did with him called Featherlight, which again, like Click that you did with Eric C. Powell, Featherlight, which you did with Mark Bebb, is easily one of the best synth pop songs, easily, I think, of the last 30 years or so. I mean, it's truly, there are some songs that just have that timeless quality as soon as you hear them, and they get better, and they stay every bit as fresh no matter how much time passes. And both of those songs that you worked on, both Featherlight and Click, for me anyway, kind of fit that mold of songs that are really truly something special. And so again, that magic dust, whatever the heck it is that you're able
I have
to
a bag of it over here that I just kind of sprinkle on
do
my
you
keyboard.
send some my way, would you? No. But Mae, let's talk about that. Talk about what are your thoughts on say Click or Featherlight?
Oh, Click is just absolutely gorgeous. I think it remains my favorite Darwin McD song. It's yeah, you get the same feeling when I hear it. I feel the same feeling that I felt the first time I heard it, and
Right.
it's just it's very uplifting. It's very joyous, and the lyrics are so very simple, and
Right.
they're not at all complicated. It doesn't change a whole lot. It just reiterates the same thing over and over again. It's just that feeling of being in love with somebody,
Yeah.
and the music just absolutely carries it. And I think it's an amazing collaboration, especially given Darren has told us how it came about, and it was just. I
Yeah.
think it's neat. I think it's neat when someone says, "Hey, can I play with this?" And okay, sure, and something amazing happens. And so yeah, absolutely. I think when I look at and everyone, Spotify, yes, I use it. I pay for it, and I buy music too. But repeatedly, whenever Spotify does like the year end, your most listened to, Click stays in there. Click stays in my top songs that I listen to. And Featherlight is just absolutely, you're right, it's very timeless. It's got a very light, it feels kind of ethereal, and there's a certain, when I hear it, it kind of brings me back to the same weather. I tend to make a lot of associations with ambient temperature and music. So
Well, you're in Texas, go figure.
yes, and oh my goodness, we've had our first few 100-degree days, and
Oh,
dying right now. So, but yeah, there's this heat. I feel this heat. So hearing that song in like the 2 days of winter we might have, I feel that. I feel that same feeling. And I guess also, and maybe it's partially because some of the music does kind of take this the wrong way. It reminds me of chichadas or cicadas as pronounced in English, but we have a lot of them here. It's the sound
Those
of
really
summer.
annoying bugs. Is that what you're talking
Yes, yeah. It's the sound of summer
well,
though, and that
it's
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
better. It's better than her saying it reminds her of las cucarachas.
about?
Better than
Yeah.
cockroaches, right?
right. Just throw a shoe at those. So
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. No, I would agree, and I think each instance where you collaborate with somebody, Darren, you really kind of, it tends to pull out the best in not only yourself but also in the person with whom you're collaborating. Particularly your work with Mark. Mark is such an amazing songwriter to begin with, and lyrically, he's just got a gift for writing lyrics. It just flows. And as a songwriter myself, lyrics are the hardest thing for me. I'm not a poet. I don't fancy myself a lyricist. And for proof of that, all you got to do is listen to Decade or Listen, Love, Repeat, right? But but Mark has that special gift of writing lyrics that are just really, and when you pair
Both.
that with, yeah, exactly, and you pair it with
Yeah.
your music, it's just like I said, it's a home run. Can you talk to us just a little bit about what it was like working on both Click and Featherlight?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start in chronological order. So Click, the demo I wrote that thinking I was going to release it as a like another instrumental to add to my collection, and you can actually hear the demo version on Spotify. We put it on the single, so you kind of hear the difference of how it started and kind of where it ended up after Eric got his hands on it. And I just put it out to a few friends. This was early on too. I was starting to meet people and kind of got to know Eric pretty well. Mark Kendrick Fused was another one. Trying to think, Cheddar was another fellow that another fellow musician. And I just put it out to a few of those guys and said, hey, could you guys have a listen to this? Just let me know what you think. And I'm thinking of putting this out as an instrumental, and you know, any tips or feedback you guys want to give me. And they all said, you know, really nice things, of course. I mean, not of course because I wrote it, but just they were very kind and generous about their feedback. And Eric said, yeah, this is really good. Do you mind if I take a crack at writing some lyrics and you know, putting some vocals to it? And I said, yeah, go for it. You know, at that point I'd never collaborated with a vocalist, but it's something that I had wanted to do or get into, but I just didn't know a lot of them. And you know, I was kind of, like I said, I was getting my feet wet in the community and meeting more people. And so literally Eric came back, I think like 2 days later, roughly, something like that, and sent me the song back. And he had actually edited it from the demo, because I had some sections were a little bit longer, you know, than they ended up ultimately being, and edited it down and kind of restructured it in a way that made it fit more of a pop style, because I'd written it kind of a just kind of meandering instrumental song, and he really structured it really beautifully. And then he sang these vocals and I was like, holy crap, this is great. Can we just release this? You know, and he's like, well, yeah, that'd be cool, but let me, like, you know, do a little cleanup and stuff on it. And, you know, I think it was literally within like a week or 2 weeks within him sending me that demo, we had launched it on, or, you know, put it out to radio DJs and then onto Spotify, Apple, you know, iTunes and all that. And yeah, people seem to like it. But yeah, he did such a great job with that song, and just the like you said, the lyrics were so catchy, pop, you know, sounding synth pop, and yeah, the melodies and harmonies and stuff that he did were great. And then with Mark, I had done a remix we talked about for a song that he did with Matthias called Hold Me. And I didn't know Mark at the time, but Matt had reached out to me to do a remix and for that song, and I did that, and it was great. And I was like, wow, these vocals are amazing. You know, Mark is really a beautiful voice, songwriter, lyricist, as you mentioned, the vocal melodies, the harmonies, everything. And somehow I think I'd send him my remix saying, hey, what do you think? Because just kind of wanted to get to know him, or he reached out to me, something we connected, and he yeah, we just kind of hit it off. Like, he really liked what I did, and then we started talking, and he, you know, we talked about doing a song together. And the crazy thing with Mark is I can send him some music, and if it resonates with him, if that's the music he likes, I mean, within a half an hour he could write like these most amazing lyrics and be like, I already wrote the song. I was like, really? You know, he's working through the vocal melodies and everything, and I was like, wow. So Featherlight kind of came together like that. I'd sent him a couple of demos, and but the one that I did for Featherlight, he was just like, this is the song. And he had, I think within hours, sent me, you know, lyrics and said, this is what I want to do. And he went into the studio, recorded it, and sent me back what he recorded, and with like kind of a sample on. I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And I knew that we had something, you know, pretty magical because of Mark. I mean, his sensibilities with, you know, songwriting and how to structure things and all of that were just so top notch, and like nobody I'd ever worked with. So yeah, that's how Featherlight came together. And, you know, of course, with everything we've done, we did do a remix EP, and we got remixers for that, and that was a lot of fun. He had some connections, so he was able to get Reed and Caroline to do a remix.
Right.
You know, we had trying to think who else we had for that one.
And you actually got airplay on Vince Clarke's
Yes, we did. Yeah,
the synthesizer show, right? So
yeah.
your
So
your hero has heard your music and played it on his show.
exactly, yeah, that was
How
pretty
amazing is
incredible.
that?
Yeah, so yeah, Reed obviously does the show with him, and he decided to play his remix on their show together, and that was just surreal. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more uh cool thing to happen as an artist, to have your, you know, like somebody you admire so much as a musician to just hear your song. I mean, you know, you can't ever validate, like if you sent somebody a demo tape, you know, back in the day, like, oh, did they throw it in the trash, did they actually listen to it? But to know that he heard that song, and yeah, that was really cool. That was definitely one of the high points of my short career in this music genre. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's move on and talk about another project that you were involved in back in let's see, what was it? The end of 2019 or 2020
Mhm.
with the Anything Box tribute
Oh
album.
yeah.
Let's talk about that. You did a track for that, and let's give people the background on that. So I want to say it was 2019, but Claude Strilio, the guy behind Anything Box, and a very dear friend, he unfortunately had to undergo a major surgery, and so a GoFundMe was started to help raise some money to help Claude pay for his medical bills, because, of course, here in the United States, the healthcare system is absolutely bonkers. And so myself and a few other people got together and were trying to think of a way that we could maybe raise some additional money for Claude, using our talent as musicians. And so some of us came up with the idea of doing a tribute album for Claude, where we would get some of the best and brightest names in the indie synth pop world, and record an album of covers of Anything Box tunes, and then we would donate all the proceeds of that album to Claude. In fact, we approached Claude, and he loved the idea, and he actually put it up for sale on the Anything Box Bandcamp page as a Bandcamp exclusive. So, but you, my friend, were one of the artists that contributed a track to that. So I have to say, you chose the song that I wanted to do first and foremost with my own, but you beat me to the punch. So, uh, talk to us a little bit about the song that you contributed to that Anything Box, Oblivion, a tribute to Anything Box is the name of the album, folks, and you can
Yeah.
find it on the official Anything Box. I think it's anythingbox.bandcamp.com, and the album is called Oblivion. But Darren, tell us about how your involvement with that came about.
Well, I think you had been talking about it, Stephen, a few other people, and we're putting together the collaboration of everybody. And um, I was asked to do a song, and my favorite, all-time favorite Anything Box song is Jubilation. I love that song. It's just so perfect in every way imaginable. And it's just very, I mean, the title itself, Jubilate, it just makes you feel that way. And it's so, you know, uplifting and happy. And so I said, "Hey, can I do that song?" And you said, "Well, I was going to do that song, but you can have it." And then I said, "You know what? I don't sing. Anybody want to vocalize?" And Jimm, you were kind enough to step in and say, "I'll do the vocals for you." And I was like, "Yes, okay." So yeah, I threw together the music, and you know, just kind of had fun with that, and kind of did my own thing. I felt it was pretty faithful to the original. There was a few parts where I'm like, I don't know if I can kind of recreate that sound the way Claude did, so I'll do my, you know, something different. But otherwise, I think it's pretty close. And then yeah, and then you were kind enough to do the vocals, and I think you were like doing it under duress, as like with like 103 fever at the time when you recorded that, and they came out beautifully, and you know, we mixed it and put it on the collection. So
Yeah,
um
it was right at the right at the end of when I was dealing with my first bout of COVID back
Yeah.
before there were vaccines, and of course when I caught it, I was really sick for like almost 2 full months. I missed like over a month of work because I was so sick, and it kind of got down to the wire because you had submitted me this amazing you know track without the vocals in it, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I don't. This is I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, and so I pushed myself one day, and sure enough, on that day I was running a fever of 102, and I don't have a lot of memory of it other than it was like I had to record it sitting down because I couldn't stand up because I was just too weak to do it. And for some reason, the part that really, looking back now, the part that I'm most proud of in the vocal on that is the falsetto at the end. The "Don't take for granted." You
That blew me away. I was like,
I
wow, you
I
nailed
think I was like, I'm gonna die
it.
because I just had the gamboo just running all through me, and but it was I remember when we played that track for Claude. Claude was like just blown away because you really did a lot of fantastic magic with the harmonizing. Now I know I sent you some of the harmonized tracks already, but you took it a step further, and of course your version begins with that vocal, that wall of sound of my voice that just harmonized like into what, like a 3 or 4 part harmony, and
Something like, yeah, it was, I think it was about three. Yeah, yeah,
and
like
it's
a
just
quarter.
it is, and as you said, it's just a almost a note for note brilliant rendition of the original. And for me, I've always loved that song. It's always been one of my favorite Anything Box songs, and it's always been a song that ever since I first heard it back in 1990, it has always been a song that when I need to find comfort or inspiration, it's a song I always go back to. In the days when, uh, shortly after I lost my mom and my dad, that was one of the songs that I would turn to, remind me that, life does go on, and, don't take for granted this thing called
Right.
life. I mean, what a great message in that song.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
It's Claude's a genius.
Claude
No,
Claude
that's it.
really is. And so I can tell you from my standpoint, being able to collaborate with you on that track was just a true honor and a privilege. And I to this day it
Honor was all mine.
remains one of the recordings that I'm the most proud of to this day because of the amazing job that you did on it. You laid
Oh,
down all the magic. I was just I was just dying as I was doing my vocal, but it all turned out. And
no, you did a great job. It was beautiful, and yeah, couldn't have done it without you, man.
right on.
And it
So
definitely, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Mae.
Well, it definitely gets a lot of positive feedback because when Claude was playing, going through the songs on the tribute album and playing them on his stream when he was doing the Quarren stream, it yeah, it got a lot of positive feedback from people who would have never heard of all these other artists that did these songs. And I love that because you had the you had the one or two butt kissers that was like, oh, nobody does it as well as you. But Claude quelled that right away and said, no, this was an honor for people to cover my songs. And I love this. And so Jubilation definitely gets a lot of positive feedback because he still will play. He's still doing his Friday night streams most Friday nights. And every once in a while, he'll bring that one out. And it gets amazing feedback. People love it. And then I'm always right there real quick with the Bandcamp link. Here, buy it.
Right on. And speaking of your ESQ1, Darren, that let's talk about that because you and I are big gearheads. And of course, for those who don't know, the ESQ1 is a synthesizer made by Ensoniq that came out in the late 1980s, and it's a digital synthesizer with analog filters, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And the ESQ1 is one of the more prominent synthesizers that Claude used on that Peace album, the one, of course, that has
Yep.
Living in Oblivion and Jubilation. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, the two main synthesizers that Claude used on that Peace album were the Ensoniq ESQ1 and the Roland Juno 60, was it? I
I
think.
believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
So, but yeah, I mean, your version of Jubilation, Darren, just you know, it just it paid true homage to the original, and
Thank you. Yeah, I've only done that cover, or at least that's been released. I have a couple of covers coming out with Mark soon, hopefully. That what I was going to say is my my inclination or my leaning when I do a cover is to try to recreate the original and do the best that I can to sound as much like it. And it's just where I goes and have to, it's like a struggle to make it sound different, you know, and put my stamp on it. Because when I was growing up and when I first got my synthesizer, all I wanted to do was recreate my idol's songs. And oh, I could do that. I think I could create, you know, Howard Jones and, you know, Erasure and so on. So that still comes out when I do when I put a
yeah,
cover song together. It's just like, oh, I really want to capture that sound. And I don't want to change it because it's so good to begin with, you know.
right.
So I really have to consciously try to do some things that are, you know, different and you know, variate from the original when I do that. So I think with the covers that Mark and I did, I'll just say it, we did a cover of Tears for Fears, Head Over Heels. And that one, I think it's pretty close. It's a little bit of a mix, but then for the other song we did is Alison Moyet's Love Resurrection,
Love Resurrection.
which has always been a big favorite of mine. I love Alison Moyet. That song just really blew my mind when I first heard it. And that one is very, very faithful to the original musically. But then when Mark got a hold of it and the vocals on that are just, I can't wait for everybody to hear that one. It's incredible. And the riffing that he does, and just it's kind of bluesy, and you know, it's very, again, soulful, which is exactly what Alison Moyet's vocals are like. You know, she's very soulful.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It was so fun to mix his vocals in with that music and kind of, and he gave me so many like layers and, you know, just tracks and takes of just riffing and harmonies and things to play with. So it was really fun to mix that and get that final output that just sounds incredible. So but yeah, that was really fun to do.
Right on. Yeah, I've had I've had the pleasure of hearing your Head Over Heels cover, um, and I cannot wait to hear Love Resurrection as well, because that's also one of my favorite Alison Moyet tunes. So it'll be interesting to hear the interpretation that you and Mark have done on that.
It'll be in the inbox as soon as we're done here. I thought I
Awesome.
sent it to you. I was pretty sure you'd heard all my stuff. So yeah, we'll get it over to you, Jim.
Very cool. So let's jump to the present day. You've got a brand new release out that just actually officially launched yesterday, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, on
Yep.
Friday, just less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
And so it's a single called Maybe, and I see you've got it the CD there behind you on your
Well,
right there.
I had to promote it, you know, on the internet.
Absolutely. Uh, I feel horrible because my copy is in my car.
Oh, well, don't feel bad. That's a good place to listen to it.
So that shows you that I actually do listen to your stuff quite frequently. So, but
Well,
so tell us about before we get to Maybe, let's talk about the this other release that you have coming up. It's going to be an EP, right?
yeah, so yeah, Maybe is the first single from an EP that I've called Interlude. And it's only a 5-track EP. It's not huge. But that project started out with I had, you know, a handful of tracks that I'd written that were never released. I think one of them was actually a demo that I sent Mark that we ended up not using. But I thought it was a good enough song and this collection of songs to maybe put out. But I wanted to do an album. So I started writing more songs, and this is about a year ago. And the songs I was writing were definitely influenced or kind of you know, I was listening to other kinds of music when I wrote those songs versus the ones that I'd written or that I had around for a few years that I didn't use that I wanted to put out. But when I got up to about 9 songs, I kind of listened to them all together. I'm like, wow, these older songs really just don't fit with these newer songs. And I was really excited about the newer songs because I was trying new things. And it's the first time I'd used vocal chops in a song. Which, you know, as you know, Tourist is a huge influence. I'm a huge fan. I've seen him twice in concert and just love his music. It's just that really great, you know, driving, put it on in the background, any kind of like, you know, electronic, you know, instrumental music. But he uses a lot of vocal chops in his songs. So I was like, I really want to do that. So yeah, these newer songs that I had written had kind of taken that shape. So I decided to ditch the older songs. Maybe I'll release them someday. I don't know. We'll see. But really focus on these other songs that I was doing. And then I think at the time I had about 3 or 4, and I'd written one more. I'm like, all right, that's enough. I'm very slow to write music. I'm not prolific. So I was like, I don't have the patience to do a full album. So I'm just going to release this as an EP. And I'd already decided, because the first 2 songs I wrote were actually Split, which is the next single coming out. That was the first song I wrote of the new batch that ended up being the first song or the one that's part of the EP. And then, and I'd already put together, like, I was really like happy with that when I put together a music video for it. So that'll come out when I release that song. And then I wrote Maybe, and decided those would be like the first 2 singles. And I'd already been kind of working on a few other tracks. And then, yeah, so that's the EP. And then, so in about a month from now, we'll see, you know, looking at the calendar, but probably about mid July, I'll release the second single called Split. And then the EP will come out about a month after that. So like maybe mid-August. And then, yeah, that'll be it for this project, or this EP project that I've been doing. But with Maybe, I actually wanted to have a couple people remix it. And one I'll speak of really quickly is the Zinc Mine, Anthony Giorgio. He's done a few remixes for Mark and I. He did actually Mirroring and Blanket, just incredible remixes. Really, really great musician. Love his work on the stuff that he's done for us. And then he did one for Maybe that came out amazing. And then somebody else I asked to do a remix. A fellow by the name of Jimm Kjelgaard, and he said, yeah, I'm actually launching this new project. I'd love to do a remix for you. So maybe, Jimm, you can tell us about the remix you did for Maybe as the Secret Space Program.
Yes, folks.
Now I've become the interviewer, and you're the
Hey, how did the tables get switched?
I just flipped it on you.
Well played.
May help, I've lost control of the interview. No, so yeah, you know, I'm sure most of the folks in Europe are rejoicing over the fact that Eminent Sol is gone. But I decided before I put an end to Eminent Sol, and just to tell you a little bit of a personal story to go along with that. My father, as many people know, my dad passed away in November, and I was extremely close to my dad. He was one of my best friends. He was the best man at my wedding. You know, I mean, I was always one of those kids that loved his mom and dad, and I was never ashamed of, you know, hanging out with my mom and dad. And Darren, you got to meet my dad, so you know how cool of a guy he was.
He was awesome.
So laid back and so, you know, humble and sincere, and
he was very proud of you. I remember that. You could just see it in his eyes. He was so proud of you.
Yeah, and gosh, it's gonna be hard for me with Father's Day coming up tomorrow. But when my dad passed, he already knew that I was planning on ending Eminent Sol, and he was really sad to hear that. And but he wrote me a letter, and he told me not to read the letter until after he had passed. And so he wrote this several weeks or a month or so before he passed away. And so after, you know, a couple of weeks after my dad passed, I opened up the letter and read it. And one of the big things that he implored me to do was he loved my music so much. He absolutely, you know, as any parent would, you know, you know, he took great pride in the fact that I wrote songs, and I wrote a song for him at one point. Tomorrow May Come with Eminent Sol, but he asked me. He said, "Please, whatever you do, don't stop making music." And of course, he knew that I just had no desire at all to continue doing music, to continue being an artist, just because of all uh, the nonsense, shall we say, the garbage that so many people uh, through my way via Eminent Sol, just outright hatred for a lot of things, and so it turned me off to ever wanting to do music again, and was one of the reasons why I decided to call it a day with Eminent Sol. But he asked me to please, don't give up writing and composing music, because it brought him. He told me how much it meant to him and my mom, and my mom and dad were always supportive of what I did with music, uh, even before Eminent Sol. When I was playing in band and elementary school and junior high, they were always there uh, cheering me on. And so he asked me not to stop, and he left me some money to allow me to go buy another synthesizer, which I did when I bought my System 8, because he knew that was one that I'd always wanted. And so that was another thing that he left specific instructions to buy myself that synthesizer as a present from him. So I decided that what I was going to do was I decided, okay, I don't really want to do pop anymore. I don't want to do something like Eminent Sol, because where I felt that my strength was clearly not as a singer. And so I figured my strength was always with composing the music, and particularly with the rhythmic aspects, the drums, the bass, and that kind of thing. So I got together with my Eminent Sol bandmate Sean Kelly, and one of my dear friends who joined Eminent Sol at the very end, a friend of mine named Brent Orm, and the three of us got together and we said, let's just let's do some instrumental music, and we'll make it to where it's really kind of like epic and cinematic, kind of like a mixture of, say, Vangelis and Jean-Michel Jarre, Jan Hammer meets Kraftwerk meets Enigma, maybe a little bit of tourist influence in there that you were talking about, Darren. And then I decided, well, you know what? Let's take this one step further. Let's approach some of my other friends that are musicians and producers that I have a good working relationship with, and ask them to just kind of have it be not so much a permanent membership, but just kind of like a revolving door kind of super group in a way, if you will. And so we decided to call the project the Secret Space Program, right? Because anybody that knows me knows that that's kind of UFOs and things like that has kind of become one of my favorite things, and there's always been a rumor of the Secret Space Program existing, right? So Darren, you were actually one of the first people that I approached about wanting to help out in that project, and as of yet, we haven't collaborated on a tune for that, but I invited you, and as well as a couple others like Raymond Hayter of Pacific Deep and Cosmic Address, and Jay Hay of iSunray. And so those are some of the folks that we're going to be collaborating with on original music. But for this one, for the Secret Space Program, you approached me and wanted to know if I'd be willing to remix this song, Maybe. And of course, I was just absolutely flabbergasted that you would actually ask me. I didn't talk
No
about
brainer.
I'm not worthy,
Stop.
and
Stop.
so I graciously accepted, and with great trepidation for fear of not being able to be up to your standard,
Oh,
but
stop.
we did, and so the Secret Space Program contributed a remix of Maybe, your current release, and it's a bit different from the other ones that are on there, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
I think it's a great thing because you chose to speed it up a little bit, because it's a
Yeah.
slower song. I call it down tempo, and you sped it up a little bit and added some beautiful string pads, and it's actually gotten a really great response. A lot of DJs are playing it, and they're
You're
picking
kidding
it
me.
up. No, I'm not kidding at
People
all.
are actually playing it. Wow.
Yeah. So
They must not know that it's me behind it.
Stop. But no, it's really great. It really is a wonderful remix, and I can't thank you enough for contributing and helping me with my project. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree. It's excellent. When Darren had first sent me the files and I was listening to them, yours wasn't on there yet. And the first time I listened to Maybe, I kind of got my things mixed up when I was trying to listen to them. So I ended up listening to the 12-inch, the first, and I was walking around my yard with my headphones on. And at one point I sit down and my husband comes into the backyard and he's like, "Are you okay?" Because I'm sitting there like this. The swing. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so good."
Great. My remix made you sick. Okay, great.
Well, so that one was the 12-inch. No, yours was even more, because I tend to feel music viscerally. I also tend to, in my daily life, have the emotional output of a brick. I'm good in a stressful situation. I can keep it together. I've been told that family members passed away and I got 2 tears squeezed out of my eye. And when I first went back and your mix was now on there, I listened to it, and I was at the sewing machine, and I had to stop what I was doing, and I just sat there, and my husband was actually next to me behind me, and he heard me, and he's like, "Are you okay?" Because all he heard was sniffle, sniffle, sniffle. And this was truly the testament to this piece of music. That starting speeded up. It kind of like increases your heart rate, and it gets you just jumping off, and then you start coming in with these very cinematic elements that just really they go kind of deep. And of course, my favorite, there's this little I think you use it like 3 times.
Yep.
And of course that one now I giggle, but listening to that first time, it wasn't just little tears. It was, I looked down and they're splashing in my lap.
Oh my
This is when my husband knows. He's like, "Wow, that must be really good." He says, "Are you okay? Or it's the music, isn't it?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, this is." And I think certainly there's probably a factor that I know you personally, and I know the things that you've been going through in your life. And it's a combination of understanding how much you translate that into your music. That's how you express and you process what's going on around you. And so I'm sure there was a factor there, and it was just this moment to just feel and to just allow myself to feel, because I don't allow myself. I keep it together. And this was a moment where I could allow myself to feel, and it's amazing. So I think you did an amazing job on that.
Oh, thank you. I don't know what to say
You
except
made me cry, Jimm.
well, a lot of people cry when they hear my music, but not for those reasons. But I have to revert it back to the comment that Darren made earlier about the importance of the source material anytime that you do a remix. And Darren, your song, I mean, Maybe, is just an absolutely brilliant song from start to finish. And it was just a simple matter of me of when I listened to it, it just made me feel good. It really, like you, Mae, I tend to feel music viscerally. I either connect with it or I don't. And Maybe was a track that as soon as Darren sent me the original to listen to, I was just absolutely, I mean, it was absolutely in my wheelhouse for the kind of thing that I love to work with. So gear wise, of course, I got to start talking about gear. Those gorgeous, ethereal cinematic strings. That's the amazing Oberheim OBXA, and I threw in some Fairlight as well because I'm a huge Fairlight fan. So just combining those elements, and Sean Kelly, he's a big fan of the Fairlight as well, and of course, Sean being one of my absolute best friends, but also he was an Eminent Sol with me, and he's going to be one of the one of the 3 permanent members of the secret space program. So Sean and I kind of we wanted to kind of move it in that direction to where it was had a bit of a more triumphant and I guess for want of a better word, a jubilant kind of feel to it, because that was what I heard when I listened to it was, yeah, this is a song that makes me feel good. This is a song that makes
Mhm.
me want to, just, take inventory of, exactly how beautiful life is. And I tried to put some of that into the Secret Space Program remix. And when I heard the Zinc Mind remix, Darren, I'm like, oh my gosh, my mix just totally sucks compared to the Zinc Mind mix, because you know he's just so good at what he does. And forgive me, I don't know Zinc Mind's real name because I've never interacted
Anthony.
with him or talked to
Anthony.
him. But
Yeah.
Anthony, he did
Yeah,
such a wonderful job on his remix. And
really did.
I'm listening to it and I'm like, son of a bitch, man, my mix is gonna just be so
You know, I
I
feel that way every time I turn in a remix and then I hear what everybody else did for that song. Because usually when you do a remix for somebody, it's a bunch of people remixing the same song and it all goes
yeah.
on EP. Sometimes they go on a bigger, thing, but and that's how we've always done Mark and I and Eric and um, Richard with Run is we just have this one song, everybody remix it. And but when I've done remixes for somebody and then I finally get to hear what they did with the song, I'm like, oh, I wish I'd have done that, or like, oh, that's
Oh,
so good, or oh my gosh, that is like that's
Yeah.
spot on, that's perfect. So that's always I feel what you I know what you feel. It's definitely a familiar
Because
reaction that
because because really the only other remixes that I've ever done, I did one years ago for EMT,
Mhm.
and they were really happy with that one. And then I did one
Did Rude
a
Awakening too,
couple of
right?
years ago for Rude
yeah.
Awakening,
Yeah, yeah.
their single for Squeal. And my remix for the Rude Awakening was the only one that when uh, I forget who it was, maybe the Electricity Club did a review of it, and they mentioned all the remixes but mine, so I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, well, there's an example of Europeans not liking what Jim does. So I totally did not expect if people are playing my remix, that's wow. I'm wow. Did not
Yeah,
expect
no,
that.
I know several DJs have selected it to be the one that they're airing. So
Wow.
congratulations. Very, very good.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was
Oh,
a
of
joy
course. Yeah,
joy
thank
to
you.
remix it, and I can't wait to work with you on our whatever our secret space program
Yeah,
original
definitely.
is going to be
Yeah,
after probably won't see the light of day until next year, just because we have so much going on. But
right, right.
no, it's awesome. Um, so tell us, just kind of about how when you sit down for the compositional process, when you start composing a song, what is one of the first things that you kind of do first? Are you driven more by do you lay down like the rhythmic components first, or do you just kind of play around with chord progressions? What let's use maybe for as a for instance. How did maybe follow walk us through the
Wow.
songwriting process and how you patched that all together?
Um, how did that one start? I want to say so for me it's all over the place. I don't have like I don't write all the songs the same way. Sometimes if I'm inspired by it usually comes with inspiration. So if I hear something I'm like, oh, I really like that, and it just kind of gets the juices flowing, and then I'll sit down and at a piano and just start like playing with chords and writing something. And then other times I'll hear a particular sound or a part in a song and I'll be like, oh, I want to do something like that, and then I'll kind of play around with that, on the synthesizer, and then build that ends up developing into a song. So with maybe I think it started as the latter. It was more like I think I was trying to kind of capture a sound, like kind of I like the way these notes are played or the sound itself, and then just kind of built the song, just kind of evolved from there, with I don't really I sometimes it'll start with a bass line too. I love myself a fat bass line.
Right.
So sometimes I'll be playing around with bass sounds and bass lines and throw something together, and then that kind of, and a chord might come along with that. But I would say more often than not it starts with like chord progressions. I love really just trying to find that really catchy or nice sounding chord progression as you kind of roll through the song, and from this chord to that chord, and then to this other chord, and then back around, you know. And then sometimes I'll write songs that are like maybe where it's kind of not, there's not a lot of structure to it. I mean, in the sense that like when I wrote Featherlight, it really lent itself to a vocalist and like a verse chorus, you know, kind of structure, if you will. Whereas other songs, and like particularly the ones on the EP as instrumentals, they have vocal chops, but there might, I guess you could consider parts like maybe like a chorus, but it's more, some songs are just more like not structured that way. They're not really like a pop song. They're just more kind of meandering electronic, you know. But there's definitely structure. I don't say there's no structure because I love me the build up, right? Like I
Right.
start out kind of soft and kind of build everything up into like a crescendo of like, you know, bam, and here hit you with the everything in the kitchen sink at the end. But yeah, maybe it was more of a, I think it just trying to capture a sound of something that I'd heard, something I was inspired by, and then just kind of evolved it and developed it from there. You know, obviously adding all the components, the rhythm, you know, and the bass line and everything after that. And then I think I had a part of the song, like maybe one loop or one, you know, 4-bar section, and then kind of started like creating. Once I kind of fleshed that out, then I would like, okay, now I'm going to write like the next 4-bar section and kind of link them together and kind of see where it goes from there. But that's usually how it goes.
That's awesome. I typically, when I'm composing an original, or even like with your remix that I did, I'll almost always start off with the rhythmic components, particularly the bass line. You know, I really like arpeggiated bass lines, which I think you do too. And just kind of, you know,
Yes,
figure
very
out
much
what,
so.
figure out
Well,
how the chord progression is going to go after that, and then you know, there's a couple songs that I've done when I was with Eminent Sol, like Sway, for instance, where I came up with Sway. Uh, we were at rehearsal one night, and before we began rehearsal, I was listening to "Never Tear Us Apart" by NXS, and so I was just kind of down in the rehearsal room, just kind of playing around with a, you know, Marcato string patch that sounded identical to what they used on the NXS recording, and I'm like, oh, I kind of like that chord progression, and so I basically lifted that for Sway, and I found a patch in one of my software synthesizers that I just absolutely loved, and so um, Sway was like one of those songs that for me came together. The basic structure of the song came together in the space of probably about 45 minutes. I mean, once I had that chord progression down, it's like, okay, and this is how I'm going to do the bass line. The bass line's going to run like a counter melody to that, and so yeah, it's I always, and I think that's the reason why I really gravitate more toward the upbeat and light, you know, the lighter synth pop than some of the darker, more serious stuff. Is I like a song that has a groove. You know, I mean, I don't, you know, I listen to a lot of stuff that's not synth pop. So, you know, I love listening to classic, you know, funk and R&B, like Morris Day
Yeah,
and the Time, Prince. You know, just if a song's got a really good solid groove, that's what hooks me. And then of course,
right.
you know, the great thing about synth pop is melody. I mean, that's really what synth pop is all about, is a great melody and harmony. And you know, nobody does a better melody than Vince Clarke, you know.
Nope.
And so I think, you know, there's a reason why you and I both, you know, look up to Vince Clarke so much, is
Yeah, yeah,
he's just so good at doing that. But
yeah.
most of the time, like when I'm actually sitting down to compose, I actually do it in front of just a piano. It's just a piano
Yeah, yeah,
or a guitar. I very seldom go to my synthesizers and find a patch and go, "Oh, that's an interesting sound. I'm going to make a song using that." It's, for me, it's almost always, I try to make sure that there's a song underneath all that technology, so that if I were to strip away all the technology, I still have a song that I can, you know, play on
right.
an acoustic guitar or piano or something like that. Um, but you definitely, the way that you put together your songs, they are so um, you know, the precision that you use, and you know, and that would include the patches and the sounds that you use. I mean, you just create an absolute masterpiece that is just so cohesive just an absolute joy to listen to. It's ear candy, you know. And Mae, would you agree or disagree with that? Just he's ear
Absolutely.
Disagree.
candy.
Absolutely disagree.
Absolutely, yeah, disagree totally. I was just listening to, since maybe he's now on Spotify, and you see I haven't even unwrapped my CD yet because I don't do that. A couple other songs that were playing afterwards, some of your earlier instrumentals. And the best way I can describe it is, if you go down the road in our neighborhood and go down the state, you know, farm to market road, if you go straight, you're going out towards cotton fields and plains and flat and everything. And I'm not saying your music was flat, but like I was listening to like Aurora. It's got this thing going. It's definitely a landscape, but for me, you listen to maybe instead you've turned north and you've jumped suddenly into Texas Hill Country, and there's undulations, and there's just these gorgeous, you come around this corner because they you know cut through the hill to take the highway, so you're all of a sudden you're in this wall of limestone around you, and then all of a sudden you come around a corner and there's this vista of all these hills, and it was really gorgeous last night driving that way to the venue we went to. And so I said, oh my gosh, there's the difference right now. I see the development in over the past couple of years in what you've done. And I said, you know, listening to, there was another one that came on, but then Aurora also, I can't remember what the other one was, but we were listening to it and I said, this is such nice driving music. And then you hear maybe, and the way it's developed, it's driving, but it's a different landscape, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's all gorgeous.
I'm really glad to hear that, because that's kind of what I was going for, was the driving music. Like I just, because that's what I like, you know what I mean? Like
it's perfect for that.
Max for Maps, you know, I could name a bunch of others, but Loose Sign, I just love that kind of just really, I don't know how else to describe it, but like driving music, it's just where you can put it on and just really forget about everything and go. And that's kind of what I was trying to capture, that the essence of that kind of music. And I had been listening to a lot of that, obviously, because it came out in the songs that I've written. So, but yeah, thank you. That's a huge compliment, because that's really what I was going for. So, yeah, and I can't wait for everybody to hear the rest of the songs, because I've been sitting on these for quite a while now, it feels like, and you know, getting them to the point where they are now for release, and just kind of waiting on the releases and stuff. But yeah, I've been really surprised by the reaction to Maybe, because I personally, I didn't know it was like the strongest song of the ones that I've written, but it was one that I already decided this is going to be a single. But I feel like there's a couple on the EP that I like a lot, and I'm really excited for people to hear those. So yeah, that's hard to do, is wait.
Well, mission accomplished. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, it is the perfect song to just simply listen to when you're out on a drive. And you know, like everything you've done. I mean, I keep going back to Tumbleweed, that track you did, you know, very early on.
Yeah.
Whenever I do those all instrumental shows for the Soul of Synth-Pop, that's usually one of the tunes that I go to right off the bat, because it's just so much fun, so much energy, so much of you in that song. And
Yeah.
it's just an absolute treasure. And Mae, I've never been to Texas Hill Country, but I do know that Texas Hill Country barbecue is among the best in the world. So
Oh, it is. I had some tacos last night.
Oh, don't even start. Don't even start.
They were so good. I think I took a picture for you.
Were they brisket?
They were brisket tacos. And oh my gosh, they were so good.
That sounds phenomenal.
So Darren, you do know that you and me and Stefano have to get together in LA.
Yep.
And you have to introduce us to Peruvian food.
Oh, love Peruvian food. Yes, yes. We got to make that happen, Jim.
We do. And of course, you know, everybody that listens to the Soul of Synth-Pop, there's not a show that goes by where you don't hear me mention two things, right? Tacos and bunnies.
Bunnies.
And what?
Yep. Tacos and bunnies.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So yeah, I mean, tacos, you know, if you want to have a friend for life, buy me a taco. They're just like they're the perfect food, just fits in your hand, and they're delicious. Even if you're a vegetarian, just, you know, eat veggie tacos are delicious as well, you know.
Yeah.
But
My wife is a vegetarian, so that's
so
her jam.
so let's wrap things up here by talking just a little bit about what some of your plans are in the future. You got, of course, the interlude EP coming out, but before that, we're going to hear
Split.
the other track, "Split."
Yeah,
That'll be
split.
a release, and then that will be followed by the interlude EP release proper, right?
Yes.
And then what are your plans beyond that, or have you not really got?
So yeah, and Mark and I have been talking about working on our next original song. He's asking for another Featherlight, so I'm doing my best to try to recapture that I gotta find that vest that we were talking about earlier. I think I lost it. But yeah, so definitely want to work on that. We got actually I sent him a demo a while back, and he had written some lyrics for it, and we'll probably kind of do something with that at some point. But yeah, I need to work on that. We have the covers that I mentioned. We actually have some artwork done for that sort of, and those we just need to get mastered and get it out. So that'll probably be coming up soon. We're still figuring out like timing on that, but yeah, beyond that, just trying to wait for that inspiration to come and start writing some more music. So yeah, it's hard for me I can't force it, sometimes if I tried it. So I've been lucky a few times where I just said, okay, I'm going to sit down and try to write something, and something has come out of that. But usually it's just got to be like, I hear something and be like, wow, that really inspires me to want to go and try to write something. And so yeah, just hanging out, looking for opportunities. But yeah,
Wonderful.
those are the plans. I thought about maybe releasing those other tracks I talked about earlier, but I don't know. And now that I've been listening to the new EP, and I just don't know if they're up to snuff anymore. So we'll see. Maybe someday I'll just put them out kind of under the hood, just very quietly, and see if anybody notices, just so they're out there. But
Well,
yeah,
you've got two fans right here that will gladly buy them
well, I
when
appreciate
if
that.
and when you
And
release them.
And
and if he decides to put them up, I've become aware of where he's hiding the old stuff at his house. So
Oh,
we'll just
oh.
sneak in the night and we'll find it.
yeah,
Jim.
exactly.
We'll find it.
So I'm thinking, because Darren, you've got a pool. I'm thinking the next Soul of Synth-Pop
Yeah,
meetup has to be at your
here,
house, man. So
absolutely. I'm totally down for that. Everybody, come on out.
May,
We'll have
let's get you and Kevin out there, and
Absolutely.
we'll
yeah.
we'll just have we'll see if we can get arrested.
Yeah,
Bring bail money,
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
You gotta have goals.
right? Got to have goals, squad goals, right? So if you were to let me just throw kind of an oddball question at you. If you were to give some advice to an artist who's just getting started out, maybe they're just getting the courage to record and release their own music in this marvelous genre that we call synth pop, what would be some of the advice that you would give somebody just starting out?
Um, I think it's very cliche, but write something that you like, if you're a songwriter, because I'm sure that you listen to music that a lot of other people like, that you love. And if you write music that you love, I'm sure other people will also like it. And yeah, just go with your instincts. I mean, if you're writing a song and it sounds good to you, stay with it. Don't tweak it too much, because I have a tendency to do that. Like, oh, I really should have changed that. You just got to go, with what comes out, and put it out there, and let people enjoy it. Don't get too hung up on perfecting it or anything, because it's never going to be perfect.
Right on.
Just got to let it flow, and then put it out and let people enjoy it. And then you ask a bunch of people to remix it for you, and maybe something out of that too. So, but yeah. Yep.
So let's talk about, just real quickly, and we'll kind of wrap it up here with what would you say? Give me 5 albums that formulated your biggest influences. What are five albums, or just simply 5 songs? What would you say are some of the pieces of music over the last 30, 40, 80 years Not that you're 80,
Wow.
but
Formative.
yeah.
Man, hard-hitting questions today, Jim. Uh, Probably, I mean, I have to go back to Vince and some of his early work, obviously. Upstairs at Eric's for sure. Yeah, Yazoo. I want to say the Circus for Erasure. That album just blew my completely. I mean, the sound on that, the sound design and the songwriting and everything. That album just blew me away. The production. Flood has become like one of my favorite ever producers. I think the guy's just an absolute genius. You know, Depeche Mode has obviously been a huge influence. So, boy, the one that really probably have to say, wow, Black Celebration. I think a lot of people would say that had a very huge influence on me.
Good answer.
Yeah, that's three. Okay, two more. Gosh, I think Technique, New Order,
Oh,
is
brilliant.
another one that just hugely influential for me. And if I had to pick a fifth one on the island, I would probably take. Oh, gosh, that's a tough one. Wow, I'm thinking Howard Jones or Thomas Dolby, the Golden Age of Wireless, or uh, Dream into Action.
Dream
I don't
into
know,
action.
one of those two. That's a toss up because I absolutely love that Thomas Dolby album so much. There's so much goodness about that whole album, and then Dream into Action is just brilliant. There's so many just the wave of emotions on that album that you go through, and the sound and I mean the performance. Yeah, and Hojo was like a really big influence because between Thomas Dolby and Hojo, they were the ones that I saw on stage by themselves with all these keyboards around them, and I'm like, I want to do that. You know,
Right.
that's were the
Yeah.
ones that kind of I think pushed
Same.
me into this whole thing, from a you can do it yourself, like I talked about earlier, you know, kind of thing where like I don't need other people. I can actually do this all on my own. Not that I don't want to collaborate with people. Don't get me wrong. It was just back then, you know, I didn't know a lot of musicians, especially people that liked the kind of music that I liked, at least that were making music or had keyboards. There were few and far between. So I was like, how am I going to do this? You know, and then I saw those guys doing it by themselves. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So yeah, those five. So yeah, and I think that's probably representative of like the bands that shaped me as at you know my musical taste and everything at a very early age. You know, during my formative years, the teenage years. So
Right.
yeah, I'd probably say those. I'm sure there's probably another half a dozen or so that I could throw in there, but those are probably the most influential albums for me. Yeah.
Fantastic. May, let me throw that question at you. What are give me five of your favorite synth pop albums of all time?
Wow. Gosh, you get me there.
This should have been homework before the interview.
Right?
Pop
And
quiz, folks. Pop
On the
quiz.
spot.
I can go like off genre and you know tell you those. As far as synth pop, oh, definitely anything Vox piece.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's
That
so
was,
many.
I mean,
It's one of the
that,
greatest synth pop albums of all
Yeah.
time. Truly.
yeah, absolutely. And then get New Order Technique. That one was also in there. I felt alone. I felt really alone with, and I know you guys had the same experiences. I wasn't listening to what everyone else was listening to. A lot of what I listened to would have had been influenced by what my sister was listening to. So yeah, I was listening to Yazoo's Upstairs at Eric's when my peers in middle school were listening to other stuff, you know, what was on the radio. Wow. I said two, right? Because when I think of what pops into my head right away, it's not necessarily synth pop, but it's definitely still in those influences that I know other people are. Because I'm like, does Crowded House have a keyboard in there somewhere? I mean, because their self-titled would be in there. Who else? Gosh, we're going to be sitting here for a while if I have to think. Like I have to look at things. OMD's Pacific Age. I don't know why that didn't occur to me right away. That's definitely, and then honestly, OMD's Dazzle Ships, because of how different it was.
Yes.
It wasn't even within that community, even with those people who were listening to it, it wasn't something that was like, automatically accepted. And now it's just so iconic.
It was really ahead of its time. It really was.
It really was. Absolutely. And then, yeah, going into Howard Jones, because that's what my sister was listening to. And so I was listening to Dream Into Action when I was listening to the deeper cuts when my peers were only hearing the ones on the radio. So definitely his lyrics are just amazing. His messages and his music are always right up there with that positivity that we seem to tend to embrace in this genre.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, mine, I share some common ones with both of you. Okay, of course, Depeche Mode's Black Celebration album is my all-time favorite album across any genre of music. It is the album that truly changed my life. It's what made me want to make a career out of doing music. And to this day, it is the one album that I continue to draw inspiration in and find solace in whenever I'm having a really rough day. There's just something about Depeche Mode's Black Celebration album. Also, I would probably have to put New Order's Technique on there. I used to say New Order's Power, Corruption, and Lies was more influential to me, but I'm going to be honest. I think lately I've been listening to Technique a heck of a lot more, and plus I got to see New Order on that tour for Technique, and to this day remains one of the most enjoyable shows I ever went to. I would also add Enigma's first album, 1990 AD, the one that had Sadness on it and all that. Still love that album. Upstairs at Eric's is pretty huge, but OMD's Architecture and Morality is another one that just had a huge influence on me, especially Mae de Orleans. I mean, Mae de Orleans is such a, and particularly when they perform that live, Andy McCluskey just, he's just amazing to watch him perform that. And I would also have to say, it's hard for me to pick my favorite Erasure. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of I Say, Chorus, and Cowboy. Those are probably my three favorite Erasure albums, but kind of alternates between there. And of course, I'm also a huge fan of The Cure's Disintegration album, which is probably the closest thing they have because there's so much synth on that. But Disintegration is another album, desert island album, that I just simply could not ever imagine not having in my life. It's just, especially on rainy, gloomy days, it's the perfect album to listen to. So yeah, well, Darren, thanks so much for joining us today, and Mae, thank you so much for being in the co-hosting chair for me. It's a real honor and privilege to have both of you be a part of this. And Darren, we so appreciate your music and everything that you do, and the wonderful soul and the spirit that you bring to the indie synth community. You are truly a legend, and I look up to you as both a fellow artist, but what's even more important is just the type of human being you are, and you are truly one of the great ones. And it is a genuine honor and a privilege to count you as my friend as well as my colleague. So hats off to you.
Absolutely mutual. Thank you so much. And
Mae, you are just awesome. And thank you for.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. Yes, absolutely. Amazing.
We're gonna make that happen. That's how you amazing.
Exactly. So again, folks, thank you so much. You can find Darren's music at darwinmcd.bandcamp.com, as well as Apple Music and iTunes and anywhere else that you find fantastic music. And you can also purchase Darren's current single, which is called Maybe, and you can get that in both digital and CD formats via Darren's Bandcamp page. Highly recommend it. Got to give a shout out to Steve Vliss for the excellent mastering job that he did on the Maybe release. And definitely check it out, folks. It's a really great release. And Darren's got 3 versions of his own that he did on there. He's got the radio single edit, he's got the album edit, and he's got a gorgeous extended mix of it, as well as remixes from Zinc Mind and The Secret Space Program. So all kinds of great stuff that's on that release, and cannot recommend it highly enough. It really is another brilliant piece of work that Darren has given to us, and we cannot wait to hear what comes next. So Darren, thanks again. And Mae, I'll give you the last word, and we'll pick it up next time.
Well, I have one last word, one last question. Okay, Darren, 30 seconds on the clock. I want to hear all the banana foods you can name.
Oh, oh my gosh.
Stop laughing.
What?
I'm obsessed with bananas.
Bananas.
Flavored anything. It started as when I was a young kid.
Please tell me you don't eat like the banana flavored taffy or the banana flavored runts. I mean, those.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
the best runts. Are you kidding me? Come on.
I don't think we can be friends anymore, dude. Seriously, that's like a crime against humanity.
Yeah,
well,
I confess.
Slapping them out.
I am obsessed with bananas. Anything I see that's flavored banana, I instantly buy it. It's just I'm gravitated. It's an obsession, actually. It's kind of bad, but
bananas give you gas, you know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I never really thought of it that way, but
so do tacos.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I could probably go on and on for quite a bit about all the things that I have that are banana flavored.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
30 seconds.
Chips, banana pez, banana runts. There's banana shakes, dried bananas. There's banana pocky. You know those pocky sticks.
Yes.
There's Bananarama. I'm a big fan of them. Just because they have banana in the name. No, I like their music too.
And they're hot.
Those Swedish fruit candies. They're Swedish. There's a banana in those. Those are really good. Yeah. So is my time up yet, Mae?
Yeah.
You forgot banana hammocks.
Oh God.
Sorry, folks. I'm sorry for derailing the whole.
Yeah, I don't have one of those, fortunately. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I think I showed Mae when she was here. My next door neighbor has a banana tree that the banana clusters hang over onto my side of the property, so they're technically
yours then. Yeah.
They're yours. They're
That's
yours.
Right.
And that was it. Well, thank you.
Yes, and things are indeed bananas today. So
very bananas, yes.
Thank you again, Darren. Thank you again,
Yeah,
Mae.
thank you.
And folks, we will have this up on YouTube very shortly. Obviously, that's probably how you're watching this, but you can of course follow the Sol of Synth-Pop on Facebook, also on Instagram and Twitter, and take a listen to the show. We're on the show on Radio Plus, radioplus.co.il. Every Sunday afternoon, and or in the evening if you happen to be in Europe, or early in the morning if you're in New Zealand or Australia. But if you haven't checked out Darren's music, I highly recommend you do so. It's truly fantastic. And with that, Darren and Mae, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next time. Make sure to love one another, take care of one another, be nice to bunnies. Never let a drum machine, vocoder, or synthesizer go unwanted or unloved. Adopt one today and just be awesome. See ya.